I spent 3 days preparing Thanksgiving dinner for 20 people. My daughter Sarah and her husband Mark were supposed to bring their kids, my only grandchildren. They never showed up. No call, no text, no explanation. Just an empty chair where my daughter should have been. It was my first Thanksgiving since losing my husband David to cancer 6 months ago. We'd hosted this dinner for 15 years straight. Same menu, same traditions, same family recipe for stuffing that took me 2 days to make from scratch. David always carved the turkey while I fussed over the gravy. The grandkids would run around the backyard while the adults sat on the porch with coffee and pie. This year, I thought keeping the tradition alive would help me heal. I invited Sarah's family, my sister Joan and her husband, a few neighbors, even the young couple next door who just moved in from Ohio. I wanted the house full of laughter again. I started cooking Tuesday morning. 20-pound turkey, 3 kinds of stuffing, mashed potatoes for an army, green bean casserole, cranberry sauce from scratch, sweet potato casserole with those little marshmallows my grandson Tommy loves. I made 4 pies, pumpkin, apple, pecan, and chocolate cream. The house smelled like home for the first time since David passed. Wednesday night, I set the table with our good china. The table stretched from the dining room into the living room, chairs borrowed from the church. I polished the silver, pressed the napkins, arranged the centerpiece with fall leaves and candles. It looked like something from a magazine. Thursday morning, I got up at 5 a.m. to put the turkey in the oven. I wore the orange sweater David bought me last year, the one he said brought out my eyes. I fixed my hair the way he liked it and put on lipstick for the first time in months. At noon, I texted Sarah, "Turkey's almost ready. Can't wait to see you all." No response. At 1 p.m., people started arriving. Joan brought wine and hugs. The neighbors came with flowers and compliments about the smell drifting from our kitchen. Everyone asked where Sarah was. "They'll be here soon," I kept saying. "Traffic, you know how it is." By 2 p.m., the turkey was perfect. Golden brown, juices running clear. I took photos to send to Sarah, thinking maybe she'd forgotten the time. Still nothing. At 2:30, we sat down to eat. I left 2 chairs empty at my right side. Joan's usual spot and Mark's beside her. The kids' table had 2 empty booster seats. Joan kept looking at me with worried eyes. The neighbors made polite conversation, but I could tell they felt awkward. The young couple from Ohio asked if they should wait a little longer. "No," I said, forcing a smile. "Let's eat while it's hot." We said grace. I mentioned David, like always. I mentioned being thankful for family, even though half of mine was missing. My voice cracked on the word family. The food was perfect. Everyone said so, but I could barely taste anything. I kept checking my phone under the table, hoping for a text, a call, anything. At 4 p.m., I called Sarah directly, straight to voicemail. At 5 p.m., as people were leaving with containers of leftovers, I tried Mark's phone. Also voicemail. Joan stayed to help clean up. She didn't say much, just washed dishes while I packed away enough food to feed us for a week. "Maybe there was an emergency," she said finally. Maybe, but something in my gut told me different. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat in David's chair, looking at the table still set for 20, with those 2 empty seats staring back at me. I opened Facebook on my tablet. That's when I saw it. Sarah had posted photos from earlier that day. A beautiful Thanksgiving spread at what looked like a restaurant. She and Mark were there with the kids, all dressed up, smiling at the camera. The caption read, "So grateful for our little family tradition. 3rd year at the Harvest Club. The kids loved the fancy dining room." 3rd year? I stared at that screen until my eyes burned. 3rd year meant they'd been doing this since before David got sick. While I was taking care of my dying husband, planning our family Thanksgiving, Sarah was making other plans. The comments were worse. Mark's mother had written, "So glad you finally stopped doing that big family thing. Much more relaxing this way." Sarah had replied, "Exactly. No stress, no cooking, no cleanup. Perfect for the kids." I sat there in the dark, holding that tablet, realizing I'd been planning a dinner for people who never intended to show up, not just this year, possibly for years. The next morning, I called Sarah. This time, she answered. "Oh, hi, Mom. How was yesterday?" How was yesterday? Like she hadn't missed it entirely? "You didn't come," I said. "Come where?" My throat tightened. "Thanksgiving dinner, the one we planned, the one I've been cooking for since Tuesday." A pause. Then, "Oh, Mom, I thought we talked about this. We decided to do our own thing this year. We never talked about anything. You said you'd be here." "I don't think I did. You must have misunderstood." Misunderstood. Like I was some confused old woman who couldn't remember a simple conversation. "Sarah, I have text messages. I have our phone calls. You said you'd bring the kids." Another pause, longer this time. "Look, Mom, we just thought it would be easier to keep things simple this year, with Dad gone and everything being so heavy." Heavy. My grief was heavy to her? My need for family was an inconvenience? "You could have told me," I said. "I thought I did." But she hadn't. I know she hadn't, because I would have remembered. I would have canceled with everyone else. I wouldn't have spent 3 days cooking for ghosts. We hung up without saying goodbye. If you've ever been lied to by someone you'd do anything for, hit subscribe. Not for me. Do it for everyone who's ever cooked dinner for people who never planned to show up. That afternoon, I drove to David's grave. I brought him a plate of turkey and stuffing, set it by his headstone, and told him everything. The empty chairs, the Facebook photos, Sarah's casual dismissal of my pain. "I don't know what to do," I said out loud, feeling foolish but needing to say it. The wind picked up, rustling the leaves around his stone, and I swear I could hear his voice. "Stop waiting for them to love you right. Start loving yourself that way instead." I drove home and called my financial advisor. David had left me well provided for, but I'd never really looked at the details. I'd been too grief-stricken, too trusting. I assumed Sarah would help me understand everything when I was ready. "Mrs. Pattison," he said when I explained why I was calling,
I'm actually glad you reached out. There have been some inquiries about your accounts." My stomach dropped. "What kind of inquiries?" "Your daughter has called several times asking about the process for managing your affairs. She seemed to think there might be some confusion about your capacity to handle financial decisions." I gripped the phone tighter. "My capacity?" "She expressed concern about your mental state since Mr. Patterson's passing. She asked about power of attorney, about what would happen if you became unable to care for yourself." The room started spinning. Sarah wasn't just avoiding me, she was planning around me. "Did you give her any information?" I asked. "Of course not." "But Mrs. Patterson, I think we should meet. There are some things your husband arranged that you should know about." We met the next Monday. His office was downtown, 30 floors up, with windows overlooking the river. He spread papers across his desk like he was laying out evidence. "Your husband was very specific about protecting your independence. He set up several accounts that only you can access." I learned that David had quietly moved half our savings into a trust with my name only. No joint ownership, no successor, no way for anyone else to touch it. He'd also purchased a life insurance policy I knew nothing about, with me as the sole beneficiary. He did this 2 years ago. He said he was worried about pressure from family members if anything happened to him. 2 years ago, before he got sick, David had seen something I'd missed. Did he say why? The advisor pulled out a folder. He showed me some text messages from your daughter. She'd been asking about your retirement accounts, about the house, about what would happen when you both were too old to manage things. He handed me photocopies, messages from Sarah to David. "Dad, you know Mom's not good with money. What's the plan for when you guys need help? Mark thinks you should consider downsizing. We could help you find something smaller, easier to manage. Mom gets so emotional about decisions. It might be better if someone else handled the big stuff." I read each one twice. My own daughter, discussing my incompetence behind my back while I was taking care of her father. "There's more," the advisor said gently. He showed me bank records, small withdrawals over the past year, always under $500, always with my signature, except I'd never made those withdrawals. "Your husband noticed the discrepancy," he said. "He had the signatures analyzed. They're very good forgeries, but forgeries nonetheless." My hand shook as I looked at my own name, written in my own hand, but not by me. "The withdrawals total about $8,000, he continued. "Always for things that seemed reasonable. Groceries, gas, small household purchases. But they weren't made by you." I thought about all the times Sarah had offered to help with errands, all the times she'd borrowed my wallet to grab something from the store, all the times she'd hugged me goodbye, and somehow my purse felt different afterward. "What did David want me to do with this information?" I asked. "He wanted you to have choices. The accounts I've shown you give you complete financial independence. No one can pressure you, manipulate you, or make decisions for you." He also left instructions for legal action if the forgeries continued. David had built me a safety net I didn't even know I needed. He'd watched our daughter calculate my worth and decided to put my security out of her reach. That night, I sat in our bedroom looking through old photo albums. Pictures of Sarah as a baby, a toddler, a teenager, David teaching her to ride a bike, me helping her with homework, family vacations, birthday parties, graduation day. When had she stopped seeing me as her mother and started seeing me as an obstacle? When had love turned into inventory? 2 weeks later, Sarah called. Her voice was different, sharper.
Mom, I think we need to talk about your living situation. My living situation is fine. This house is too big for you and expensive. Mark thinks you should consider something more manageable. I'd been expecting this call ever since my meeting with the financial advisor. Like what? There's a nice community about 20 minutes from us. Senior living, but independent. You'd have people around, activities, medical staff nearby. I looked around my kitchen, the one David and I had remodeled 5 years ago, the one where I'd cooked Thanksgiving dinner for people who never came. I'm not ready for that, I said. Mom, you can't keep living in the past. Dad's gone. You need to think practically. I am thinking practically. That's why I'm staying in my home. Her voice got tight. We're just trying to help. We want what's best for you. What's best for me or what's best for you? Silence. I don't know what you mean by that. I think you do. She hung up. If you've ever had your own child treat you like a burden instead of a blessing, you know how that silence feels. Subscribe if you think mothers deserve better than that. If not, tell me in the comments why you disagree. The next day, I got a call from a lawyer. Not my lawyer, a stranger. Mrs. Patterson, this is Jim Bradley. I represent your daughter, Sarah. She's asked me to call regarding some concerns about your welfare. My mouth went dry. What kind of concerns? She's worried about your mental state since your husband's passing. She mentioned some confusion about financial matters, some concerning behavior. I gripped the phone, such as missing family gatherings, forgetting conversations, making accusations about family members. She's wondering if a competency evaluation might be helpful.
They were actually doing it. Sarah was trying to have me declared incompetent. Mr. Bradley, I said carefully, I think there's been some miscommunication. I haven't missed any family gatherings. I've been excluded from them. I see. Well, your daughter seems quite concerned. My daughter is concerned about my bank account, not my mental health. A pause. Mrs. Patterson, I'd recommend you retain your own legal counsel for this conversation. I intend to. I hung up and immediately called the lawyer David had used for his will. Within 2 hours, I was in his office with every document the financial advisor had given me. This is attempted guardianship fraud, he said after reviewing everything. Your daughter is trying to have you declared incompetent so she can control your assets. The forged signatures alone are felonies. What do? We fight back hard and we document everything from now on. He helped me file a restraining order against any further attempts to access my financial information. We scheduled a comprehensive cognitive evaluation with an independent psychologist to prove my mental competency. We prepared a detailed response to any legal challenges. But most importantly, he helped me understand something I'd been too hurt to see clearly. This wasn't about love or concern for my welfare. This was about money. My money. Your husband saw this coming. That's why he protected you. Now we finish what he started. That weekend, I started packing, not to move to some senior community, to get away from it all. I found a realtor and put the house on the market, not because I couldn't handle it, but because I didn't want to handle it anymore. Every room held memories of a family that used to exist. Every corner reminded me of holidays and dinners and gatherings where I'd been welcome. I wanted something new, something that belonged only to me. I bought a smaller house 2 states away, near my college roommate, who'd been begging me to move closer for years. Close enough to visit, far enough to breathe. The day before I moved, Sarah showed up unannounced. She let herself in with a key I'd forgotten she had. "Mom, what are you doing?"
I was in the living room, wrapping David's awards in newspaper. The movers were coming in the morning. "I'm moving." "You can't just leave." "I can do whatever I want. I'm competent, remember?" Her face flushed. "That lawyer thing was just, we were worried about you." "No, Sarah, you were worried about my money." She sat down hard on the couch. For a moment, she looked like the little girl who used to crawl into my lap when she had nightmares. "Mom, I know things got messed up, but we can fix this." "How?" "We'll spend more time together. I'll call more. We'll have you over for dinner." "When?" "Between your restaurant Thanksgivings and your estate planning meetings?" She flinched. "I found out about the signatures, Sarah. The withdrawals, the conversations with financial advisors behind my back." She started crying, real tears, not the manipulative kind. "I was just trying to help. You seemed so lost after Dad died. I thought if I could just take care of some things, it would be easier for you. Taking care of things isn't the same as taking things, and lying to me isn't helping me. I never meant for it to go this far, but it did, and now I can't trust you." She cried harder. "Please don't move away. Please, the kids need their grandma." "The kids need a grandma who's invited to their lives, not one who has to beg for scraps of attention between your real plans. That's not fair, isn't it?" I handed her the key she'd used to let herself in. "I love you, Sarah. I always will, but I won't let you erase me just because you can." She left the key on the coffee table and walked out. The next morning, the movers came. I watched them load my life into trucks, piece by piece. Neighbors gathered on their porches to wave goodbye. Joan cried and promised to visit soon. As the last truck pulled away, I stood in my empty driveway and felt something I hadn't felt in months: relief. I wasn't running away from my daughter. I was running toward myself. 6 months later, I got a letter, not from Sarah, but from my grandson, Tommy. He learned to write cursive and wanted to show me. The letter was short and sweet. "Dear Grandma, I miss you. Mom says you moved because you were sad. Are you still sad? I made you a picture. Love, Tommy." Inside was a crayon drawing of a turkey. Under it, he had written, "For next Thanksgiving." I cried reading that letter, not sad tears, happy ones, because I realized Tommy was right. Next Thanksgiving would be different. I called my college roommate. "How do you feel about hosting a big dinner this year?" "I thought you'd never ask," she said. This year, I'm making Thanksgiving dinner again. Same recipes, same care, same love. But this time I'm cooking for people who actually want to be there. People who see me as more than a bank account with a pulse. My neighbor's family lost their grandmother last year. The young couple down the street has no family nearby. My roommate's book club has 3 widows who spend holidays alone. We're calling it Friendsgiving, 20 people who chose each other instead of just happening to share DNA.
Sarah sends cards now. Birthday cards, Christmas cards, thinking of you cards. Never calls, never visits, never apologizes. Just cards with her name signed at the bottom. No mention of Tommy's letter, no acknowledgement of what she did. I keep the cards in a drawer, not because I'm holding on to hope, but because they remind me of something important. Some people will only love you as much as they need you, and I don't need to be needed anymore. Last week, Tommy called me on his own. He'd gotten his mother's phone and dialed my number from memory. "Grandma, I want to come see your new house." "I'd love that, sweetheart. Mom says it's too far."
Maybe when you're older, you can decide for yourself. "Okay, I love you, Grandma." "I love you too, Tommy." That's the call that mattered. Not Sarah's lawyers or financial advisors or competency evaluations. A 7-year-old boy who remembered his grandmother's phone number and wanted to hear her voice. So here's what I learned. You can't make someone love you the right way, but you can stop accepting love that feels wrong. You can't control who shows up to your table, but you can control who you invite. And sometimes the family you choose loves you better than the family you were born into. This Thanksgiving, I'm grateful for empty chairs because they taught me to fill my table with people who actually want to be there. If your own family ever made you feel like a burden instead of a blessing, subscribe. If you think I should have tried harder to keep them close, tell me why in the comments. I want to understand your perspective. But know this, I'm not angry anymore. I'm not bitter. I'm just free. And sometimes freedom looks like walking away from people who forgot your worth. Sometimes it looks like building a new table where everyone has a place and everyone shows up. That's the table where I belong now. And it's set for people who know the difference between taking care of someone and taking from them. Let them send cards. Let them worry about my money from a distance. Let them plan their restaurant holidays and their convenient traditions. I'll be here, cooking for people who love me enough to show up. And that's all the family I need. So let me ask you, whoever's listening, whoever's been sitting with this story, if you were in my place, would you still cook for people who see you as a burden instead of a blessing? You heard my question. Now answer it with your mouth. Click subscribe if you've ever had to choose yourself when your own family wouldn't choose you. If you won't subscribe, fine. But don't scroll away. Scroll down and tell us why. Say it in the comments. I want to understand.